The next paper we have will see us navigating through flag challenges for EU ship owners, and as our speaker we have Christian Mollitor, who's Vice President of YCF Maritime and the Liberian Registry.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, and thank you all for sticking through to hear what I have to say this late at night. We have a presentation coming up, but there were, when I was deciding on what to talk about during this presentation, there really were, pages and pages of flag challenges for EU ship owners, but I really had to narrow it down to make 10 minutes. So I picked one that I think you'll find really interesting. From my analysis on the Italian shipping market specifically, we do see currently that most Italian ship owners use the Italian flag. But our opinion is that with the increase in outside funding, changes in regulations, and the Italian fleet increasing, this may change over the next 10 years. Also, I know there's a lot of lawyers and maritime stakeholders from other countries in the EU, so this may interest you as well. My discussion today will focus on these 3 areas. One, I have some interesting shipping statistics that you hopefully will find interesting. The meat of the presentation really is these EU state aid guidelines, originally published in 1997, revised in 2004, and we're seeing really these things are just picking up in the last couple of years. Different states in the EU are starting to enforce them. So going forward, you may hear more about this. And the third thing is really just based on the 2 above, what to look at when selecting a flag state for your ships or your client ships. About us, just briefly, I just wanted to show you this. Our organization has grown horizontally. So you probably have heard of the Liberian Ship Registry. 12.5% of all ships in international trade are registered with Liberia. But because of the EU state aid guidelines, we actually had to change a little. And so we formed an alliance with the country of Luxembourg. So we have 2 companies in Luxembourg. One is Euroflag Services, which acts as a dirigeant or intermediary between the ship owner and the Maritime Administration of Luxembourg. But we also have this company called CNET, which is a consultant for the Luxembourg Maritime Administration, providing technical consulting services, inspections, and advisory services. The Luxembourg fleet has increased 300%, and really the first 30 days that we worked with them, their tonnage increased 300%. So they weren't really capable with the staff they had on board to deal with that, so that's why we created this company, CNET. We also recently built and now operate a maritime academy in Ethiopia. We opened up a new source of seafarers in Africa. Ethiopia might be interesting to you since it was formerly an Italian colony. And right now we graduate marine engineers, ETOs, and oilers, and it's really scaling up to be probably the largest maritime academy by the end of the decade. But here's a typical ship scenario. This also is really changing, and it's changing because more owners and operators are moving from Europe and from Hong Kong to Singapore. German ships that were KG financed are moving out of the German fleet, and they're moving to Greece, they're moving to the UK, and they're moving to the United States. And third, just because of the private equity ownership, the private equity funds really are looking more towards commercial rather than political considerations when advising owners, which flag to choose. So I think you'll see this change a lot in the next 5-10 years. This is really the world merchant fleet by type, and these are all ships in international trade. See a big chunk of bulk carriers, tankers, and then container ships. And by ownership, who owns all these ships? One of these graphs the one on top is by vessel, the one on the bottom is by deadweight tons. And you'll see that, about 40% of all ships are EU owned currently. If you look at the top graph, you see that Germany is kind of the largest. This number has really decreased in the last 3 years, and it will probably continue to decrease as those ships move to Greece and the UK and the United States. But if you look at it by tonnage, Greece is by far the largest group of owners in the world, and not Europe. But also you have in there some other EU countries: Norway, the United Kingdom. This probably comes as no surprise to anyone, but the three top shipbuilding centers continue to be China, Japan, and South Korea, and EU is fifth largest. And then by country registry, of course, this is probably no surprise, but there are some EU countries here: Greece, and Malta, and Cyprus have large market shares. This other 25% that's not in the top 10, that's where you have your national flags like Italy, UK, etc., Norway. So here, getting to the meat of the program, what are these they're the community guidelines on state aid to maritime transport? Like I said before, it was initial communication in 1997. No one really did anything about it because it was guidelines. It was revised in 2004. When states looked at it 5 years later, they found actually that EU flags on EU-owned ships was decreasing, which was in contradiction to what it was asking EU ship owners to do, which was to commit to increasing or at least maintaining EU flags share by state. It specifically doesn't apply to companies that have more than 60% of tonnage under the EU flag, which includes a lot of Italian ship owners. What really drove Germany to take this to heart was that Germany was threatening that they would stop the tonnage tax regime in Germany and bring back the corporate income tax. And as part of these guidelines, that is defined as state aid, is tonnage tax instead of corporate tax. German ship owners weren't really implementing this for these reasons here. The shipping crisis, reflagging problems, really, they didn't want to flag to Germany because it's very bureaucratic, and there really wasn't any support by banks or investors for them to change to a national flag in Germany. I won't go into this, but this is the basic: what is the responsibility of a flag state? Registering ships, recording mortgages, operational oversight, seafarer credentialing, and then policy development at the IMO. And this, I think, is my last slide, so I'm doing okay on time. But really, when you're advising your clients or you're a ship owner and you're looking at choosing a flag, really these are what considerations you really should think about. The first paragraph there is political considerations, and that's really more of a national registry type of flag. You really need to, there's really some kind of regulatory requirement driving that decision, whether it's cabotage, so you're trading domestically or in the EU, or these state aid guidelines of 2004. If you have a national flag, you're restricted on construction location sometimes, and crew nationality, depending on the state here in the EU, and then really look at tax too. As far as commercial considerations, usually that drives ship owners to use open registry. And again, you should look at reputation, enforcement versus casualty records, port state control record, whether the flag is whitelisted and Qualship 21 certified in the United States, if it has an active ship owner association, and then, of course, price. Some other miscellaneous things to consider here is if it's a bureaucratic flag, or if the flag has technical experience, how their customer service is in responding to problems you might have if your ship's detained, and then whether there's any kind of extras that the flag provides, either in programs that you need or technical innovations that might make your life or your crew department or your ship management company have an easier time and really save money for your clients. So that's all I have, and I think I made it just in time. So thank you.
Perfect on time. Thank you, Christian. I think you mentioned at the end one of the most important points. Our company flies the Italian flag. We are proud of it, but nowadays, and I take full responsibility for what I'm about to say, apart from the patriotic feeling, there's nothing left now in the Italian flag because of an enormous weight of bureaucracy, which is the last point you mentioned. So I could give you a list of all the problems of the Italian flag, but I don't want to bore you tonight. I will be happy to bore anybody who wants to listen to me for dinner.